Welcome everyone to the Sankofa program. But before I can go into the program, let me tell you a little bit about who I am and how I ended up on the shores of West Africa. So my name is Priestess Haneera Abounu, and some of you may know me from my podcast, the Divine Feminine Podcast. But for those of you who this is our first introduction, let me give you a brief overview of who I am and how I ended up, on the shores of West Africa, Benin, starting this program, the Sankofa program. So I've been coming back and forth to Africa for about 10 years. And what called me to start coming to Africa was just wanting to know more of my culture, my roots, and my heritage. My family is from the Deep South, and we've been a military family. And so just in traveling, getting to know myself as an African woman, of course, my natural draw was to go to Africa. And so I've been coming here for about 10 years. It was during COVID, actually, that I made the decision to finally move to Africa. In my evolution or paradigm shift, as I like to call it, one of the things I became aware of early on was that I could no longer allow the systems to educate my child. And so I became a homeschooling parent to make sure that they got the history, the information that I felt was valuable for our bloodline to have, made sure that my kids got that attention and care. So I became a homeschooling parent. So when COVID hit, I had the strong inclination that vaccinations and future shots would be required for the children. Well, as we all know, fast forward a few years, of course, that was some of the mandates that was on us in America. But early in 2019, I decided to transition permanently here in Africa. So one of the things I left out in that is in my travels back and forth to Africa, I initiated into voodoo. And my home temple is here in Benin, in Alada, about 1 hour from Cotonou, where we are today. And so when I travel to Africa, most of the time it's been for teaching and for learning in my temple, gaining my craft and my skill. And so when COVID hit, again, now we're back at the story. When COVID hit, I said, you know what, I need to bring my children to Africa. I know there it's safe. I know there they won't have any of the problems that we struggle with back in the States. And so that's what I did.
Children.
It was me and 3 of my children. And we moved here to Benin, and I got them enrolled in school. They went to school full time. And then on the weekends, while I was training, the children would be with me. And so that became our routine. It took about 1 year to get fully established, finding support people locally to help us, getting our education taken care of. Prior to going to school here, my 6-year-old had been completely homeschooled his entire life. And so the first time he started school here was the first time he had ever went to any type of daycare, nursery, or any type of education system outside of his mother. So I was a little concerned about that at first, but the teachers here at the school he went to really welcomed him and gave him everything he needed as far as support was concerned to be able to thrive. So much so that by December, so the kids started school in September. By December, my 6-year-old, then 5-year-old, was fluent in French. And neither of my children came to Africa knowing anything but English, right? So that was a good thing. We've been running the program we've just been living, honestly, for about 2 years now. And it's to the point to where the teachers know when we are leaving, when we are arriving, when we're coming. The children go home for the summer break. They go home for the Christmas break. and then we returned. And so in our comings and goings, there have been several family members, friends in the community that have noticed what we're doing, how the children have grown, the changes that it has made in them, and then also how it's been there in the States and how they've been suffering and the things that they've been having to go through in the nation. And they're just like, how could we do what you're doing? And that came to me, maybe I would say in one trip, maybe 4 times. And I said, you know what, this is a need. And I need to be able to offer the system that I set up for my own children to other families. And so that gave birth to the Sankofa program that I'm presenting to you today. I've been coming back and forth to Africa for about 10 years, wanting to know more of my culture, my roots, and my heritage. In my travels back and forth to Africa, I initiated into voodoo. And my home temple is here in Benin, in Alada, about 1 hour from Cotonou, where we are today. In my evolution, or paradigm shift, as I like to call it, one of the things I became aware of early on was that I could no longer allow the systems to educate my child. And so I became a homeschooling parent. Back in America, there is a growing population of families that are growing tired of the culture there. Of the abuse against our people, the killings, the targeting, the food, air, and water pollution, not to mention the crime, and just all of the things that we suffer from there as Africans in America. We are at the bottom, and we are realizing that the culture that we have been given is not conducive for us.